Hi everyone, welcome to Starsight. Today we're going to channel some messages about learning to speak in our own voice. Whenever we think of authenticity, we tend to think about being authentic with others. But before we can do that, we also need to be authentic in our inner space, authentic and honest with ourselves. I know from personal experience that when we are not honest with ourselves, we don't even realize it because we're so used to speaking in a particular constructed voice for so long. So, this reading is meant to help you move towards greater honesty within the self, and that will automatically, organically lead to speaking in your own voice, even with others. Okay, so pick the pile that calls to you: hidden treasure, stepping stones, and dancing with stones. I'll see you at your reading. Alright, pile 1. Hidden treasure. You're on the right track. Gift revealed. Tuning into the energy here. This is a person who does a lot of journaling or thinking about the self. But it feels like you work a lot with words because there's all kinds of ways to do inner work, but for you it feels like you work with words, with language. Very developed mental faculty here, very developed mental energy here, but there's also a tendency to settle everything at the mental level. If you come up with the perfect explanation, an explanation that is logical and is satisfying emotionally, then you think that it's automatically a problem solved. There's a way in which you live through the mind, but sometimes mistake that mental living for life itself. So I feel like for you, if you come up with the perfect mental picture, if you think something through, then you feel like you are closest to your own voice. That when you then speak, it will be authentic or it will be true. I feel like your guides are intervening to say no. Not in the sense that you're lying or anything, but they want to help you understand that there are many things that in your life that may not fit neatly into a logical or a well thought out mental picture, because you don't always have all the information about why something is happening or what it is eliciting out of you. We are all working with a very limited set of data, and you cannot obviously come up with the right complete mental picture or the right explanation, the right theory on the basis of that data, because the data is necessarily incomplete. Okay, I'm just channeling here. I'm not pausing to make sense of it myself, so you might have to do a little bit work here trying to process what's coming through. Okay, so I'm just going to repeat that. The data you have is not always complete or accurate. The data is based on your receiving apparatus, which is limited, which can be distorted, which can be taking in information only that already coheres with the stuff that you know. As a result, the picture that you end up constructing mentally is also likely to be inaccurate, distorted, or at best incomplete. Now, when you position yourself from that particular image, you're working then with a lot of possible distortions. You're working then with a lot of possible incomplete pictures. Your guides are saying that you probably rely too much on your mind. You rely too much on the capacity to make sense of things. So it's possible that you're also acting only when you think it makes sense, or you are moving towards things only when they make sense. So let's say that an opportunity turns up in your field and you try very hard to make mental sense of it. It doesn't, and so you let it go. But your body is singing. Your body is saying, let's go for it. There's a way in which your mind sometimes stands in the way of doing things that could lead you back to yourself. It's also that your authentic voice may not always be something that is immediately understandable. Like right now, what's happening? Like I have myself having trouble with understanding what's coming through, but I'm simply channeling. Like here, the authentic message is not something that I myself am able to make sense of, but if I were to stop to make sense of it, then I would deliver only 50% of it, whereas this message is not for me, it's for you. And so my job is to convey it to you regardless of whether it makes sense to me or not. Sometimes the mind will intervene and stop us from doing things that we're supposed to do, or doing things that are appropriate for us to do. Like it's appropriate right now for me to convey the message to you, whether or not I understand it or not. Yeah. I feel also that you try very hard for all of it to become coherent. Again, you think that that's a way to that's a way to really unlock the treasure in the situation, but actually it might be a way in which you're foreclosing the many meanings of a particular situation. I know that this reading is about your voice, but what's coming through a lot is how you put your mental energy to use. Your guides are trying to say that needs to change. In some ways, that is connected to your voice, to you accessing your inner voice. Yeah, King of Cups, control. Two of Cups. The key word here is union. And the Star in reverse. This union, I think, is about you integrating your emotional body and your mental body. The emotional body feels very controlled. It feels like you don't feel your feelings, but you think them. You make sense of them instead of letting them move through you. Part of why your mental energy is so developed is also because you use it in lieu of your emotional energy. For some reason, emotional energy feels like something that you have to control. you feel like you can't just let it be, or you can't just let it unfold. It's also possible that you try really hard to come up with a complex, sophisticated explanation. Maybe you're not satisfied unless you come up with a really complex picture of things. Let's say that right now I'm feeling uncertain and strange. Or to go to an even simpler example, let's say that I cooked lunch and it turned out to be not too great, and now I'm sort of in a bad mood. Okay, now the kind of energy you have, it would seem to me that you try really hard to make sense of that bad mood, instead of just accepting, well, I wanted to have a nice lunch, I spent all of that energy making food and then it didn't turn out good, I feel like I wasted my time, I wasted my energy, plus I didn't get what I wanted, full stop. And then feel the bad mood, 30 minutes, an hour, maybe do something to help yourself, go for a 10-minute walk or listen to some music that puts you in a different mood. Instead of that, maybe you spend 3 or 4 hours thinking, well, why is it that affected me so much? Yes, lunch didn't turn out good, but why did that affect me? Instead of just accepting that it did. I'm in a bad mood, full stop. Let's take care of it, Now, how is this connected to your voice? The grandmothers, remember your roots, perspective, trust the weavings. After the rain, silver lining, relief, hope, mercy, it's over, acceptance. Yeah, it feels like you do a lot of thinking instead of accepting situations for what they are. Okay, but it's not because you don't want to accept things. I'm sure there is something at stake here for you. For some reason, you have learned to assume too much responsibility for what happens in your mind, in your life. Yeah, I mean, we all need to take responsibility. Like, if I'm not okay, no matter how reasonable my reaction is, I need to take responsibility for it so that I can understand my role in this and do something about it. But then sometimes we also assume too much responsibility. Right? So no matter what happens in our life, thinking we caused it, or thinking, but I must have attracted it in my life in some way. All of this currently in the spiritual world, all of this talk of manifestation, law of attraction, this and that, I feel like it does a lot of harm also, because we end up feeling like we really have to keep our inner world clean of negativity and clean of pessimistic thoughts and clean of despair. But that is unrealistic. That is not simply, it's just, you're going to be falsifying your inner image if you try and do that. And I feel like something in you tries very hard to cleanse the inner world as soon as you see that there is something negative that it has emerged there. Okay, so I'm in a bad mood. Why am I in a bad mood? Why am I in a bad mood? So that next time I don't get into a bad mood when this kind of a thing happens. Next time when I make a bad lunch, I don't end up in a bad mood. But why? Why? It's the normal ups and downs of our emotional body There's just something to deal with in a very simple way. Like that, it does not have to be a complicated affair. It can just be, I'm not feeling good right now, let me move my body a little bit, let me go for a walk, instead of let me understand, let me understand, let me understand. Now, the way that this is connected to your voice is that I think inside of yourself, you have trouble staying authentic. Inside of yourself, you have trouble accepting that maybe you're a very angry person, maybe you get annoyed really easily, maybe you're very sensitive and the smallest thing can set you off. That's okay, pile one. That's simply how you're made. It is not something to fight, it is something to accept. Whatever your emotional body sensitivity is, instead of trying to resolve it or neutralize it by thinking about it, you just need to learn to roll with it. Yeah? I think because there is so much mediation happening inside of you, like thinking constantly about how you're feeling, the way you end up speaking is also very measured. So it feels like Libran energy here, where you're just constantly balancing the scales inside of you and then speaking only when you think, now I'm going to be able to present myself in a balanced way. But then that means that you are expressing only 15% of yourself. That means that you're expressing very little of yourself, because so much of us is chaos, right? So this could especially be something that you see in your relationships, where maybe the people that you're with, they don't really know you, or they don't exactly understand what you need in the relationship, or even when they've done something to hurt you, they don't fully get what it is, because you present it to them when you've really resolved it in your head. When you did this, it affected me, but no problem. Or it's a lot of forced clarity where there needs to be none. Like, you can just tell your partner, like, can you please stop chewing so loudly? You don't have to figure it out in your head. Why does that noise disruption bother me? Did something happen in my childhood? But they're free, this is their home also. I can't say that. Am I violating their freedom? Instead of all of that, you can say, you're chewing really loudly. And maybe they'll make a face and you'll make a face and you'll laugh, and then it won't bother you. Or maybe they'll say, why don't you go in that other room? They'll be irritated as well, and you'll get up and you'll stomp away. But you'll have discharged that annoyance instead of having thought about it for 4 hours and still be irritated with your person. Let's see some specific ways in which your guides are helping you. Motion, air. Completion, west. Okay. The guides are saying, pile one, you have developed your intellectual energy, your mental energy to its highest level that's possible right now. And it's now completed for the time being. For the time being, you need to work on your emotional body. You need to work on just feeling things and letting things go. Okay? Simplify your inner world in the sense of how you intervene. You don't need to simplify your negative feelings, just how you respond to them. Simplify the way you respond to things, okay, inside of you. And it will automatically make a huge difference in the way that you exercise your voice in the world. All right, pile one, all the best with that. Sending you a lot of love. Hi, pile 2, stepping stones. Take the next step, simplicity, focus. First thing here is keep doing what you're doing. There's some fear that I feel in your field. Fear of exercising your voice, though I feel like you've been doing that more honestly, more deeply over the last few years, much more than before. I think here there's a classic problem of you having a particular kind of self-image, but when you actually speak in your voice, that sometimes conflicts with that self-image, and then it puts you in this place of confusion and like shakiness, because you start thinking, well, is that me, or is the person the person who I think I am, is that me, or the person who expresses themselves when they speak, is that me? This confusion about who you are, because as you start expressing yourself more authentically, whatever it is that you are, whatever self is emerging, is conflicting with how you've understood yourself so far. And I think this can be particularly true in two areas. One is your creative energy. So, creative, and by that I don't just mean like being an artist or being a writer. Creative energy can be anything. It can be cooking, it can be how you parent your children, or the way you parent your plants. Creative energy can be you solving a problem creatively. So basically, where you have to apply your mind, or where you have to flow with what's coming through inside of you, you may be very surprised there. Let's say that you've always been a very peace-loving person, but you might find yourself craving things to read that are really aggressive right now, or you might want to watch TV shows that are brutal or graphic in some way. So that's one area, creative energy, where you might be surprising yourself. But then there's also the area of aggression. Yeah, so when you start speaking to someone that you're angry with, you may be surprised at how deep the anger goes. And again, you may be thinking, well, I have resolved these things. I have let go of some of these feelings. Why are they coming up again? Or why is my anger so intense? But it is. Whatever's coming up as you express yourself more honestly and authentically is much more intense than who you think you are. Four of Cups, meditation. Five of Swords, defeat. Eight of Wands, movement. First thing that you need to know is, like I said before, keep doing what you're doing. Go with the flow, okay? Don't intervene in the way that you have learned to express yourself. You're on the right path. But whatever confusion is coming through, adopt a witnessing approach to it. So you're just simply witnessing the kinds of contradictions that come up as you express yourself, and then think about the image you have of yourself. There's not much to do here, pile 2. It's just about letting yourself go where you haven't been before inside of yourself. I feel like someone in your life, especially growing up, could have been quite dysregulated emotionally. So they could have been a very angry person, or an immature person, or impulsive, too emotional, needing people around them to constantly take care of them. Basically, you've learned a lot of your own lessons about who you want to be from them. You've learned who you don't want to be from them. Now, as you start expressing yourself more authentically, I think that you are unlocking parts of you that are dysregulated, parts of you that are angry in a way that is not exactly manageable, or needing stimulation in a way that you feel is dangerous, because you might end up, needing drama, where like unnecessary drama just to feel stimulated. You don't understand these things because you feel like you've been very conscious of cultivating the opposite skills within you, that you're going to go for healthy stimulation, that you're going to learn to process your anger instead of just exploding. So you've done a lot of work on yourself, and whatever's coming through as you express yourself more honestly feels like a sign that the work you've done hasn't taken, or the work you've already done, you think you've already completed, has it not been real? That's not true at all. That's not true at all, pile 2. The reason that all of this is getting unlocked is because the work that you've done is real, but you also need to make space for the parts of you that are not exactly convenient. You are capable of doing that. Accessing those parts of you does not mean that you are going to become dysregulated. Okay? Accessing those parts of you does not mean that you're now going to be a completely unmeasured person. I feel like your confusion right now, your worry right now is more serious than the actual situation, which is not serious at all. Just flow with it, and you'll find very easily, very simply, a sense of balance. It's basically inner child stuff, like the inner child, some instinctive self is trying to express itself, and you will be able to totally manage this expression without becoming dysregulated. But for the time being, let it occur the way it's happening. There's some particularity to this stage of you learning to speak in your own voice. I think you're learning that it can't always be pleasant. You can't always be pleasant or understand other people in a way that feels pleasing to them or that feels fair to them. There are going to be times in your life when, no matter how careful you are in your judgment and in your expression, the other person is going to feel that you've been unfair to them, and there's nothing you can do about it. I feel like this inner child stuff is coming up to prepare you for a leadership position somewhere in your life, whether it's in your family, or at the level of your career, or even as a parent. You're learning that part of being measured is also recognizing when you need to be more heavy-handed. Really feels like you're being prepared for a leadership position where you will not hesitate if this work happens properly, then you won't hesitate in taking difficult decisions and also communicating them to others. The Great Mother, surrender to the mystery, fall into her arms. The Anointed, answer the call. Leadership, oh my God, look at that. I have goosebumps. Answer the call, leadership, empowerment, soul gifts, exactly. The mood is very different now than when I started the reading. It feels, Pile 2, that in your quest for regulation, you've buried a lot of emotional depth that you have. A lot of emotional intelligence that you have. But also it seems like you have limited your fantasy worlds. Just seeing that the cards are a little bit out of frame. Yeah, that you've limited in some way your fantasy worlds. Like you've allowed yourself to only want things that can be had and pursued in a measured way. For some reason, your growth as a person has been very tied to your understanding of what is measured, what is mature, and what is not. And of course, this can be because of what you went through as a child. As I was saying earlier, maybe you witnessed a dysregulated person on a regular basis, especially an adult. But you're being given encouragement right now from your guides to actually open. The opposite of being measured is not always dysregulation. There's a lot of pleasure that you're missing out on. So let's say that if you fall in love, you could be very careful about feeling giddy, instead of allowing yourself to feel a little bit disoriented and a little bit out of control. Like those are pleasurable states to be in. Let go a little bit. Let go a little bit. And I feel like you're already doing that at the level of your voice. You're already doing that, but having a hard time reconciling that slightly released self with a very controlled self. Let's see what are the specific ways in which your guides are helping you. Suddenly my neighborhood is full of noise. I am sorry about that, Pile 2. Bravery, oceans, light, sun. There are two people here on this card. And there's a child here on this one. It is possible that this message is to do with your romantic life as well. Leadership, but also your capacity to be in love with someone. It feels like a person pile 2 who's given up a lot of themselves to not inconvenience other people. To not ask for too much from other people. And you're being encouraged to let that frame of understanding your inner experience go. Are you really asking for too much, or are you inviting someone else to participate in your life? I feel like that difference between asking for too much and asking someone to participate in your life, that difference is what you need to understand. If I'm friends with you and I have a good day and I write to you about it, that's not me asking for too much from you. That's just me saying, I had a really good day and I wanted to tell you about it. I want to share this with you. And I'd like you to acknowledge that and be happy with me. That's not asking for too much. But if I were to write to you at the end of a happy day and say, I've had a really good day and you must come over and we must have a drink no matter what you're doing, and you're busy, and I say, no, I've had a happy day and you have to come, that is perhaps asking for too much. But just inviting you to be part of my life is not. The reason that this is coming up is, I think, it's not just that your inner child is coming up to express itself. I think your adult self, or your concept of being measured, being regulated, that in itself needs some work. It's not that you're just integrating now the child self with the adult, but the adult self itself, the adult self's concepts and understanding of what is acceptable relationally and what's not, what is too much relationally and what's not, that needs to change. So right now you're really offering to others a very small part of yourself. You're also even accessing a very small part of yourself, as your guides are encouraging you to access more of you, to let others access more of you. Yeah, so figure out what image of dysregulation you have in your mind that you've been guarding against so heavily, that you've been pushing away or not wanting to embody with all your might, and see if there is another kind of balance that you can visualize, where you're not as measured as and as controlled as you are right now, but it also doesn't automatically mean that you're dysregulated or asking for too much. Yeah? This feels like it's going to take you a lot of quiet work, quiet inner work, to get to the bottom of this. Take your time with it, pile 2. Alright, that's your message. Sending you a lot of love. All right, pile 3. Dancing with stones, movement, teamwork, partnership. This straightway feels like an energy that relies too much on how other people respond to you and use that as evidence to calibrate your voice. So if I think, you're enjoying the reading, then I'll continue with this vein. But the minute I feel, this is getting boring for you, instead of channeling what is organically coming through, I would start molding my message to the things that perhaps you find interesting, that you wouldn't find boring. I'm sorry about the background noise, pile 3. It's likely to be there for the entirety of our reading. So just letting you know in case that is something that is difficult for you to take. You know, that's the that noise is reminding me of a comment on the channel that someone made that really bothered me, informing me that they were leaving the video because the noise was too much. And I thought to myself, like, why did you have to do that? You know, you could have just left. You didn't have to inform me. I felt like it was done out of frustration. Some kind of letting me know that I hadn't done my job correctly, that kind of a thing. I mean, it's a free reading, friends, and please definitely click off without letting me know if you need to. I'm still really bitter about it. It just did not sit correctly with me. And I feel like that happening with you a lot. That there are people around you who are asking for things that are kind of unfair or kind of couched in pleasant language but are not pleasant at all. And instead of saying to them, okay, I don't need to listen to this, you are giving them too much space, pile 3. Like, you're not allowing yourself to be bitter. You're not allowing yourself to be like, okay, no, thank you. Instead, you're saying, okay, I'm sorry, I will try and put up in each of my videos this trigger warning for people. You know what I mean? Like, you're accommodating other people's needs too much. And this is happening now at such a deep level within you that even your voice is modulated to what you think they want from you. Eight of Pentacles in reverse, the Emperor in reverse, yes, okay. Ten of Swords in reverse, yes, okay. What's happening is that you're giving up. Sorry, some message flashed on my screen, yeah. So I'm saying that you are giving up your personal sense of power here. Okay, not just sense of power, you are giving up your personal power here when it comes to communicating with other people. You are tamping down what your sense of justice is what your sense of reasonable give and take is, and you are going out of your way to meet them. And in doing so, I don't think that you are withholding resentment or anything. I feel instead that you have the kind of open heart, pile 3, where you're actually willingly meeting other people's extra needs. It's not even as if you're lying to them about being angry, you're just actually really doing things for them because you want to. Where you may be dishonest is with your own self. I feel like you have a really you don't really trust yourself very much. You don't really respect your own needs very much. I don't know why that is. From these cards, it's not very clear to me why it's hard for you to take your own needs seriously. Take your own feelings seriously. It's almost like you're punishing yourself for something, pile 3. Punishing yourself, maybe for something that you've internalized as a child about yourself, or maybe something's happened in your life that you blame yourself for. When someone takes advantage of you, when someone takes too much out of you, it's almost as if you feel relieved to be punished. Relieved that you're being taken from, because you feel like you're not worthy of having the things you have, or that you deserve to be abused, or you deserve to be used. There's already like a really deep sense of you being guilty of something, culpable of something, that when other people treat you badly, it feels like punishment that you deserve. Maybe they don't know, of course, what it is that you feel guilty about. Their actions have nothing to do with the reason you feel guilty, but in your mind, psychically, it feels like such a relief. Like, I deserve the punishment. Give it to me. You almost feel happy that people ask for things that they have no business asking from you. I'm feeling so angry, pile 3. Sorry, the energy is so different, and these cards that have come up are very different. So I'm tuning into the energy here. So the new cards that I've just flipped open, the second bloom, a second chance, it's never too late, new possibilities. And the other card, rapture, sensuality, love, devotion, romance, ecstasy, pleasure. Still tuning in. Just give me a minute. Partly this feels like masochism. By itself, having a masochistic tendency is not pathological. Okay, we all have that instinct in some or the other degree, and learning how to actually meet it, not a bad thing, not a pathological thing at all, actually can be very healthy. But I feel like you need to separate your masochistic instinct from taking shit from others. Okay? Like, you don't have to give up masochistic pleasure, but you have to find empowering ways of indulging it. Not indulge it in a way where you give up your personal power. Now, it's going to be different for different people. One way of indulging that instinct is sexually, but with, with agency and with safe words and things like that. Getting abused is not a healthy way of indulging your masochistic instinct, but entering into a consensual, willing, sexual or romantic arrangement that involves you feeling pain, that is healthy, because there you are speaking your mind, you're asking for what you want, you are setting up the terms for your pain, whereas getting abused is not that. Something you need to understand, Pile 3, is that you have to be in touch with your sacred worth even when you indulge your instinct for masochistic pleasure. Yeah, there's a lot of things here that are fused together that you need to separate. So first thing is, if you feel in your life something's happened, and if you feel like you have to constantly punish yourself for what's happened, that is something you need to work through. No matter what you've done in your life, even if you've done something really terrible to another person, you still have sacred worth, and you have to find a way to experience that in your own body. If there is something really terrible you've done to someone, you need to atone for it, but not by punishing yourself. You need to atone for it by understanding it and becoming a new person. By changing, by making sure that you never treat another person in the same way. That is how you atone. You don't atone by punishing yourself, that achieves nothing. Especially you don't atone by getting yourself into abusive situations, by taking shit from others. That changes nothing. In fact, that enables other people to continue their unhealthy practices. So the first thing you want to do is understand why you think you don't have sacred worth. Resolve that. Second thing you want to do is, you want to understand if you really have a masochistic instinct, like you really enjoy that kind of pleasure, or you're only doing that because you're punishing yourself. If you're only doing that because you're punishing yourself, maybe it's time to let it go. If you're doing that because you actually like it, but it's gotten fused into why you think you deserve to be punished, then you need to separate those two things. And the third thing you need to do is then find healthy ways of indulging that masochistic instinct. Okay? The way that all of this is affecting your voice is that you're not using your voice. Okay? You're allowing your voice to get buried by the voices of other people around you. You don't need to do that. Let's see if there are specific ways in which your guides are helping you. Ice, purity, yeah. Comfort, hearth. Yeah, I feel like something in you is desperate to feel purity in yourself. It's like, like that monk in, what was it, the Da Vinci Code, whipping himself up, that kind of penance. Like you're really punishing yourself, welcoming punishment to feel some kind of purity within you. But your guides are saying, listen, even if you've done something terrible, you don't need to do that. You don't need to sleep under icicles. You can sleep in a warm place. You can be comfortable in front of a hearth. Is that right? I think I mixed up hearth and a fireplace. Basically, you can be in a warm place where you're comfortable around loved ones. Whatever you need to atone for, work on changing yourself. Okay? Work on making sure that you never do something like that again. You can also atone by helping others change. So if you have been abusive in the past, maybe you've hurt someone, maybe you've done something horrible, you can help other people who are doing similar things like the ones you did, and help them change. There are so many ways to atone. You don't have to punish yourself, pile 3. And you definitely don't have to punish yourself by taking other people's shit. That absolutely not. In fact, your guides are saying, no, get into real teamwork with other people. Get into real partnership with other people where you are treated as an equal, where you treat yourself as an equal. Yeah, whatever's happened in your life, pile 3, it is time to move on from the ways in which you've dealt with it. You don't need to move on from the terrible thing. Maybe there's a lot more learning that you need to unlock from what's happened, but you definitely need to figure out a different way of dealing with what happened. Figure out a different way of treating yourself so that you can get other people to also treat you differently. Not treat you like, sorry, this is the phrase that's coming in, like a piece of shit. Because you're not a piece of shit. You have sacred worth. Okay, pile 3, that feels really difficult. I'm sending you a lot of love. I hope that you're able to move from this psychic position of having to punish yourself.